On the morning of January 30th, 1933, a German aristocrat adjusted his tie in the mirror and told himself he had just saved his country. His name was Franz von Papen. He had just made Adolf Hitler Chancellor of Germany, and he genuinely believed he could control him. By the time he understood how wrong he was, 70 million people were dead. This is the story of the most consequential miscalculation in modern history, made not by a monster, but by a man who thought he was too smart to make mistakes. Von Papen didn't create Hitler. But without von Papen, Hitler never reaches power. That gap between creator and enabler is what makes this story so disturbing. He wasn't evil. He was something far more dangerous. He was a clever man who believed his cleverness was enough. Born in 1879 in Wörl, Westphalia, into an ancient Catholic family with 4 centuries of noble lineage. The kind of household where bloodline isn't just a fact, it's a theology. His father fought in 3 wars. War wasn't something that happened to men like the von Papens. It was something they administered. He trained as a cavalry officer and served on the Kaiser's personal staff. Charming, elegant, the kind of man who wore his suits like they were made for him, because they were. A contemporary biographer once called him Satan in a top hat. Not because he was evil, because he looked like everything was fine. The wound wasn't trauma. The wound was certainty. Von Papen truly believed that a man of his class could walk into any situation, any room full of dangerous people, and come out ahead. That belief was about to help unleash one of the worst catastrophes in human history. After World War I, Germany collapsed into the Weimar Republic, a fragile democracy trying to govern a humiliated nation. Von Papen was a monarchist. Democracy was, to him, a temporary inconvenience, something to manage until the right people restored proper governance. He had no popular following. None. The German public barely knew his name. Then President Hindenburg, the 84-year-old field marshal holding Germany together by sheer reputation, called him in and offered him the chancellorship. What had actually happened was that a general named Kurt von Schleicher had chosen von Papen as a puppet. A figurehead with a good name and no political base. Someone manageable. Von Papen accepted. He was 52 years old. He had just been handed the most powerful office in Germany. His government was immediately called the Cabinet of Barons. 8 of the 11 ministers were noblemen. He ruled by decree. He lifted the ban on Hitler's SA street fighters. He deposed the democratic government of Prussia in what was, legally, a coup. By November 1932, Hindenburg dropped him. Schleicher took his place. Von Papen was out. And right there, in that humiliation, is where the catastrophe begins. Men of his class did not get discarded by generals. So von Papen started plotting. He reached out to Adolf Hitler. Here's what von Papen thought at that moment. He considered Hitler crude, uncultured, dangerously emotional, a useful idiot. A mass movement that could be harnessed, pointed somewhere, and then set aside. He told Hindenburg, "We've hired him." Not elevated, not empowered. Hired. As if Hitler were a contractor who would show up, do the job, and wait for his check. The deal was simple. Hitler would become chancellor. Von Papen would become vice-chancellor. The cabinet would be stacked with conservatives. Only 3 Nazi ministers in the entire government. Von Papen looked at this arrangement and saw a cage. He believed he was putting Hitler inside it. He told friends that within months, when Hitler failed to deliver, the responsible men would quietly ease him back out. January 30th, 1933. Hitler shook Hindenburg's hand and became chancellor. Joseph Goebbels wrote that night, "It is like a dream." That evening, thousands of SA men marched through the Brandenburg Gate in a torchlight procession. Hitler watched from a window and wept. Von Papen watched from a different window in the same building, champagne in hand. He believed he had won. Within weeks, the Reichstag burned. Hitler blamed the communists. Civil liberties were suspended within 24 hours. Temporarily, they said. They were never restored. Von Papen signed the decree, still in the cabinet, still managing the situation. Then the Enabling Act passed in March. Hitler could now make laws without the Reichstag. Von Papen voted for it, still managing the situation. He was a man standing in a burning room insisting the temperature was quite comfortable. In June 1934, he gave a speech at Marburg University, warning against the regime's excesses. It was a real speech, a brave one. His speechwriter, Edgar Jung, had written most of it. Goebbels suppressed it. Not a single newspaper was allowed to print it. Von Papen went to Hindenburg to complain. Hindenburg was 86 and dying. He had weeks left to live. Nothing happened. June 30th, 1934, the night of the long knives. Hitler moved against his enemies. He used the purge to eliminate anyone he found threatening. SA leaders, conservative critics, people who knew too much. An SS unit stormed the vice-chancellery. Von Papen was arrested at his own desk. He stood up and protested loudly that as vice-chancellor of Germany, he could not simply be arrested. The SS men arrested him anyway. In the next office, his secretary Herbert von Bose was shot at his desk. No trial, no arrest, just a gunshot. Edgar Jung, the man who wrote the Marburg speech, was taken by the Gestapo and executed. His body dumped in a ditch. Another associate, Erich Klausner, was murdered that same day. Von Papen was held under house arrest and released a few days later, because Hindenburg was still alive and killing him would have been awkward. Hindenburg died 5 weeks later. Hitler immediately merged the offices of Chancellor and President into a single title, Führer. The army swore a personal oath, not to Germany, not to the Constitution, but to Hitler himself. And what did von Papen do? He sent Hitler a letter praising him for crushing the violence. He became ambassador to Austria, then ambassador to Turkey. He continued serving the regime that had murdered his closest associates and arrested him at his own desk. He never found the line he wouldn't cross to stay in the room. In 1945, American soldiers found von Papen at his estate in Westphalia. Well-dressed, composed. He was taken to Nuremberg. The Soviets wanted him executed. The prosecution argued he had been central to the conspiracy that brought Hitler to power. The tribunal acquitted him. The judges called his actions political immoralities, but not war crimes. He walked out a free man. A West German court later sentenced him to 8 years of hard labor. He appealed and was released in 1949. He lost his pension, lost his driving license, but much of his property was eventually returned. He spent the last 20 years of his life writing memoirs, articles, and essays, repeating the same argument again and again, that he bore no responsibility for what happened. He had read Mein Kampf. He had watched the SA break bones in the streets. He knew what Hitler was. He did it anyway. Franz von Papen died in 1969 at the age of 89, peacefully, at home. And he never once used the words, "I was wrong." The lesson isn't that monsters are the problem. The lesson is that the enablers always believe they are the smartest people in the room. The most catastrophic decisions in history are rarely made by people who want catastrophe. They're made by people who are absolutely certain they can prevent it.